Hello everyone from the Secrets of Betrayal channel. My name is Amy, and today I want to tell you all about the day I borrowed money and had to pay it back in another way. Subscribe to the channel, stay until the end, and don't miss any details. I stared at the open notebook on the table in the cafeteria, feeling a mixture of despair and tiredness. The numbers didn't add up, no matter how many times I did the math. The snack bar, which I had always dreamed of opening, seemed to be sinking into debt, and I felt lost. Since Michael got a job in another city, he spent most of the week away, and the weight of everything fell on me. He had always been in charge of the finances, but now I was the one who had to deal with every bill, every expense. And to be honest, I was drowning, but I couldn't tell Michael the truth. I didn't know how he would react if he knew that the business was on the brink of failure, and that I had been impulsive, perhaps even naive in accepting the loan Ethan had offered me. Ethan, just the thought of him sent a chill down my spine. Ethan was a longtime friend, someone I had always admired. He was charming, self-assured, and had that kind of confidence that makes everything seem easy. When he heard about the eatery's difficulties, he offered the interest-free loan, saying it was just to help me out, and I accepted. I convinced myself that it would be temporary, that things would soon get better, and I'd be able to pay everything back. But the days went by, and the cafeteria's business remained weak. The deadline was approaching, and I knew I didn't have the money to pay Ethan. I tried to find a solution, but everything seemed out of reach. And worse, every time I saw Ethan, I felt as if he already knew. He never spoke directly about the debt, but his glances seemed to say that he knew I was in trouble. That afternoon, after closing the cafeteria, I couldn't go home without sorting it out once and for all. I took the car and drove straight to Ethan's house. He lived in a modern house, unlike the others in town, which seemed to have stood still in time. When I parked in front, I felt a tightness in my chest. I didn't know what to expect, but something in me told me that this conversation would change everything. When he opened the door, he greeted me with a half-surprised, half-satisfied smile. "Amy? What a surprise. Come in, please." He stepped aside, giving me room to enter, and I, trying not to look as nervous as I felt, went in and sat down on the sofa. His house was impeccable, as always. Every detail seemed to have been thought of, and the woody smell mixed with a slight hint of fresh coffee made the atmosphere welcoming. But at that moment, all I could think about was what I had to say. "I think I need to talk to you about the loan," I said, trying to sound calm. He tilted his head, looking at me intently. "Of course. Go ahead, Amy." I took a deep breath. I'm struggling to make ends meet. The cafeteria isn't doing so well, and I honestly don't know if I'll be able to pay it back in time." He watched me in silence for a moment, his eyes seeming to study my every reaction. Finally, he nodded, with a gentle smile that almost calmed me down. "I understand. Of course it's hard for you. But, I trust you. I know it's temporary." The relief was instantaneous, but something about the way he looked at me made me uncomfortable. It was as if he was planning something, and the silence that fell between us was almost palpable. I felt like a line was being crossed, something I'd never imagined between us. He hesitated for a second, but then took a step towards me, standing close enough for me to smell his perfume. "Amy, I have a proposal that might make things easier for you." My hands started to sweat. I wasn't sure what he meant, but I sensed that it wasn't just a question of money. Until that moment, it had never crossed my mind to do anything outside of my marriage. I loved Michael, and despite all the difficulties, I had never thought of cheating on him. But standing there in front of Ethan, with the weight of that debt on my back, a part of me began to give in to the pressure. "What do you mean, Ethan?" My voice came out almost in a whisper, as if I was afraid of the answer. He smiled, a peaceful smile, but his eyes were anything but serene. "I'm saying, Amy, that maybe we can find a way to resolve this debt in another way." He put his hand on my shoulder lightly, but his touch burned, as if every part of my body was on alert. I looked away, feeling my face flush. I knew what he was implying, and as much as part of me wanted to deny it, another part, deep down, felt an attraction to him that I didn't know existed. Ethan was handsome, confident, and had always treated me with respect. But now, he seemed to want something more, something I had never considered. What would this mean for me, for my marriage? Should I refuse and simply accept the shame of not being able to pay? What if Michael found out about the loan? I don't know, Ethan. I got up from the sofa, trying to control my thoughts. Every part of me was screaming that this was wrong, that I should get out of that house and try to sort things out another way. But at the same time, I felt the weight of the debt and the fear of failure. He looked at me calmly, as if he knew I needed time to decide. Amy, you don't have to give an answer now. Just think about it. I just wanted you to know that I'm here to help, in any way I can. I nodded, trying to smile back, but I could feel my face burning. I said goodbye quickly and left with my heart beating fast, not knowing what the future held or how I was going to get out of this situation. I was at a crossroads, and for the first time, I felt that I might have to cross a line that I had never considered before. I was sitting at the last table in the cafeteria, my head down, my fingers absent-mindedly turning the ring on my finger. The soft sound of cutlery and plates in the background reminded me that I had responsibilities there, that this place depended on me to keep it going. But everything seemed distant, as if I were watching my own life go by in slow motion. Ethan's face, the words he had said, the proposal he had made to me, everything was still so clear in my mind. That day, as the cafeteria was closing, Ethan had appeared by surprise. He had an expression that was a mixture of confidence and mild amusement. To him, it looked like a game. But for me, it was a maze of emotions and dilemmas that I couldn't escape. "So, Amy," he began, leaning back in his chair as if he were at ease, as if it were just another casual conversation. "How are we going to resolve the payment issue?" I felt my stomach turn. I knew I didn't have the money, and that if my husband found out I'd taken out a loan, he'd never forgive me. But Ethan seemed to know that. It was as if he had planned every detail, as if he already knew that I would be there, with no way out. "I haven't gotten the money yet, Ethan," I replied, trying to sound firm, but my voice came out shaky, giving away my nervousness. He just smiled, a smile that made my heart beat faster, but not in a comfortable way. It was a smile full of hidden intentions. He leaned forward a little, resting his elbows on the table and staring at me with those piercing eyes. "Well," he said calmly, "you know there are other ways to solve this, don't you?" I swallowed. What he was proposing was clear, but at the same time it seemed so absurd that part of me refused to believe it. I was a married woman. I had a husband who trusted me, who had always been there for me. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the financial squeeze and the need to keep the diner going. "Ethan, I don't know if I can do this," I mumbled, trying to find a way out that didn't involve giving in to his proposal, but he didn't seem willing to give up so easily. "Quick question. Do you think there's more infidelity today than in the past? Let me know in the comments." He moved closer, his eyes never leaving mine, and whispered, "Amy, think about it. I can forget about this debt. Nobody needs to know." I felt my face flush and a wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. It was a tempting invitation, and at the same time, an abyss that could destroy everything I had built. It was night, and I was standing in front of my bedroom mirror, trying to understand myself. My reflection stared back at me, with the same expression of uncertainty and guilt that I had been carrying around for days. I felt divided, as if there was a part of me screaming to get away from this situation, while another part was intrigued. Ethan's proposal still echoed in my head like a nagging song you can't get rid of. The cafeteria had closed early that day, and the silence of my room brought me an illusory peace, which was soon destroyed by the weight of the choice I knew I would have to make. Ethan had made it clear that he wasn't forcing anything, but I knew that, even without pressure, he had found a weakness in me. He saw the dilemma that haunted me, and somehow seemed to know how to use it to his advantage. As I stared into the mirror, I thought of Michael, my husband. He trusted me, He always believed in my efforts to keep the snack bar going, but at the same time, he would never understand that I had come to this point, secretly taking money from Ethan to cover expenses. How could I explain that I was on the edge of a precipice, with no way back? Ethan had offered me a way out, one that made me shudder, but which seemed the only viable alternative. What else could I do? I had nowhere else to turn. Friends? I didn't have any. And as for Michael, well, he would never forgive that debt, let alone the idea of giving in to an offer like Ethan's. I need to make a decision, I whispered to myself, as if the reflection in the mirror could answer. But there was no answer. It was up to me to sort out this storm on my own. The next day, I was in the cafeteria, rearranging the ingredients in the kitchen, but my heart was beating faster with every passing minute. Every noise coming from the door made me jump, fearing it was him. Until, at the end of the afternoon, there he was, walking in as he always did, with an almost casual confidence. He waved to me, and I felt a chill as I realized that this moment was inevitable. With hesitant steps, I walked over to the table where he sat, trying to keep my breathing under control, but already feeling the palms of my hands cold with nerves. "Hi, Amy," he said with a quiet smile. It was a normal greeting, but there was something behind that look, something that seemed to strip me to the core. "Ethan," I replied, almost whispering. My words were barely coming out. "We need to talk." He nodded, still keeping that calm smile. "Of course. I'm all ears." I sat down in front of him, trying to keep my composure. But I soon realized that he was waiting for me to say something, for me to take the initiative, and that only increased my anxiety. "Look," I began, feeling my throat go dry. "I've thought a lot about what you said, about the debt and the other option." His eyes sparkled with interest, and he leaned forward slightly. "Yes?" "I don't know if I can do it," I confessed, looking down. "I've never done anything like it." He seemed to reflect for a moment before replying, his tone low and calm. "Amy, this isn't an obligation. I'm not here to force you into anything." He smiled, but there was something else in his gaze. "I'm just offering you a way out, something that might help you." Those words echoed in me, as if an echo from a distant mountain came back to remind me of my own fragility. A way out. And somehow he made it sound like it was all so simple, a logical solution to the problem I had created for myself. I found myself lost in a tangle of confused feelings, as if I were floating in murky waters, not knowing which direction to take. I just wish things were different," I whispered, my voice barely making it through the heavy silence that surrounded us. The words came out of me like a confession, a plea that revealed what I held inside, a desperate desire for change. He watched me in silence for a moment, his intense eyes analyzing every detail of my face, as if he were pondering the next step, assessing whether he could, in fact, help me. There was a calmness about him that contrasted with the storm brewing inside me. Anxiety pulsed through my veins, but there was something about his presence that made me want to believe that everything could work out. Then, with a gentle touch I hadn't expected, he reached out and took my hand. The warmth of his skin against mine sent a shiver through my body, and for a moment, the whole situation seemed even more unreal. It was as if the world around us had disappeared, leaving just the two of us, immersed in a moment that mixed fear and hope. "You can't tell my husband any of this," he said, his voice now firmer, but still charged with a tension that couldn't be ignored. His words resonated in my mind, a warning that made me think of all the consequences. The weight of the secret was overwhelming, like a huge boulder that I would have to carry alone. But there was a part of me that was willing to take the risk, to cross that line between right and wrong. I didn't know where it would lead, but the idea of escaping that monotonous life, full of obligations and expectations, was tempting. He seemed to understand my internal struggle and squeezed my hand lightly, as if to encourage me to move forward. "This will be our secret." When he said that, something inside me ignited. The words echoed in my mind like a promise, but also like a challenge. I didn't give it a second thought. Taking him to the bottom of the warehouse was an impulse that sprang from adrenaline, curiosity, and a desire I didn't know existed. The dark, stuffy space, far from prying eyes, seemed the perfect setting for what was about to happen. The musty smell mixed with the cold of the wall made everything even more electrifying. There, in that dim light, I was about to turn a debt into something much more intense. My heart raced and my hands trembled slightly, but not from fear. It was a chill in my stomach that I hadn't felt for a long time. As we got closer, I realized that it was as if the outside world had disappeared. His touch, unexpected and surprisingly gentle, made me lose myself for a moment. The moment was quick, but it didn't leave me with any regrets. On the contrary, it was liberating. The adrenaline of transgression left me alive, and that secret was kept in me like a flame that would never go out. After that day, he started coming back often. At first, he said he was just checking to see if I needed any money. But soon the visits became more frequent, and I noticed his gaze changing. It was a look that was searching for something more. The tension between us intensified, and although I knew I should stay away, there was something that drew me to him. Part of me felt guilty for feeling this way, but another part was yearning for more. I remember moments when we crossed paths in the corridor, and how my heart seemed to want to escape my chest. With every smile, every exchange of glances, the flame of adrenaline resurfaced. I resisted. I've always resisted. Despite all his charms and advances, I held the line. The commitment I had to my husband was strong, and I knew I had to protect what we had built together. The love I felt for him was genuine, and I didn't want to risk the relationship for a fleeting adventure. He was a good man, always so dedicated, and I couldn't let him down. However, temptation remained a shadow in my mind, and the emotion of my past choices followed me. Over time, the regular at the warehouse drifted away. I put him off, and his attempts became rarer and rarer. This made me feel relieved, but at the same time a little nostalgic. Sometimes I found myself thinking about what could have been, but the truth was that I had no regrets. What we experienced there was unique and intense, and those memories were mine alone. I knew I had made the right choice in prioritizing my marriage, but the memory of what had happened left me with a smile on my face. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Life went on, and I was able to live in harmony with my husband again. He had no idea what was going on in my mind, and I didn't want him to know. We had a solid marriage, based on respect and love, and I would fight to keep it that way. The echo of those past experiences became part of who I am, but it wasn't something I carried around like a burden. Instead, it was a part of me that made me feel alive and fulfilled. The secret for me was like a guarded treasure, something I wouldn't trade for anything. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I would think about how the choices we make shape our lives. What I experienced was not just a transgression, but an affirmation of my freedom, of my ability to choose what I want for myself. The adrenaline of those experiences taught me a lot about who I am and what I really value. I'm not someone who lets myself be led by convention. My decisions are my own, and I'm not ashamed of them. In fact, I'm proud of them. And so I went ahead, living the life I chose, keeping a secret that I would never reveal. Because deep down, some experiences are so intense that they don't need to be shared. They're just for us, and I'll always remember the thrill, the adrenaline, and the freedom I felt in that tank. Life is made up of choices, and I chose not to regret anything. What happened is there, stored away, like a memory that I'll always carry with me. But that doesn't define who I am. Every decision, every path I've taken has shaped the person I am today. Instead, It was a part of me that made me feel alive and fulfilled. The secret, for me, was like a guarded treasure, something I wouldn't trade for anything. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I would think about how the choices we make shape our lives. What I experienced was not just a transgression, but an affirmation of my freedom, of my ability to choose what I want for myself. The adrenaline of those experiences taught me a lot about who I am and what I really value. I'm not someone who lets myself be led by convention. My decisions are my own, and I'm not ashamed of them. In fact, I'm proud of them. And so, I went ahead, living the life I chose, keeping a secret that I would never reveal. Because, deep down, some experiences are so intense that they don't need to be shared. They're just for us, and I'll always remember the thrill, the adrenaline, and the freedom I felt in that tank. Life is made up of choices, and I chose not to regret anything. What happened is there, stored away, like a memory that I'll always carry with me. But that doesn't define who I am. Every decision, every path I've taken has shaped the person I am today. With every look, every touch, I feel that we choose each other every day. This love gives me the courage to face any challenge that comes my way. And even with the adrenaline I've carried in moments of uncertainty, there's no place I'd rather be than by his side, building our story. Building our story is a daily act of love and understanding. We experience simple but precious moments, such as candlelit dinners, shared laughter, and even comfortable silences. Each one is a brick in the construction of our home. And even when the days are hard, when life seems heavy, we have our safe space, where we can be ourselves without masks. Love is a commitment, a choice we make constantly, and I choose it every day. Behind our smiles, there is a well-kept secret in our hearts. It's my refuge, the place where I can be vulnerable without fear of being judged. Sometimes adrenaline comes from unexpected situations, little adventures that make us feel alive. I remember one day when we decided to go for a walk without a destination. The sun was setting, and the sky was filled with vibrant colors. Every step we took was a celebration of our love and the life we had built together. Laughter echoed through the air, and the tension of everyday life seemed to evaporate, replaced by a feeling of freedom and joy. In those moments, I realized that life is made up of small choices, that every day is a new opportunity to love, laugh, and live intensely. I don't let the fear of what could have been stop me from enjoying what's in front of me. The future is a mystery, and that's what makes it exciting. I see each day as a blank page, ready to be filled with new experiences, new adventures, and, above all, lots of love. And at the end of each day, when I look at my husband, I know that all the choices I've made, all the battles I've fought, have been worth it. Every moment is a reminder that life is beautiful, and I'm here to make the most of it. That was the story, my loves. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked this story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel by activating the notification bell so you don't miss any of our daily videos.